dissident Iranian protesters had hoped would eventually come, and indeed it has come now, and it is an earth-shattering moment for the Middle East and for the future of Iran. We should note, however, that the Supreme Leader's death is not necessarily indicative of the Iran regime collapsing altogether. This regime is not based off of one person alone. It is a system that is multi-layered, and we know that the Supreme Leader understood very well that he could potentially be targeted for assassination should the United States and Israel choose to carry out massive strikes on Iran as they did today. And in recent weeks and months, he has been preparing for potential lines of succession should that actually take place. Now, we are still waiting, of course, for any confirmation from the United States as well as to the Supreme Leader having been killed. But two Israeli sources familiar with the matter telling us now that the Supreme Leader was killed in Israeli strikes today. One last note on this is that we have also been hearing about the division of labor between the United States and Israel as it pertains to these strikes. U.S. officials have been very clear that their strikes have been focused on military targets, and that the strikes targeting senior Iranian leaders, such as the Supreme Leader, were being conducted by Israel and not by the United States. Ultimately, that may very well be a distinction without a difference, given the high level of coordination between the United States and Israel in preparing and carrying out these strikes. But this is obviously an enormous moment in the Middle East, something that we anticipated could potentially be a target of any Israeli or U.S. strikes on Iran. And indeed, now not only a target, but confirmed by Israeli sources that the Supreme Leader of Iran is dead.
Indeed, big news out of the Middle East, the potential to reshape so many dynamics there. But again, as Jeremy notes, not a straight line to regime change. This is a piece of it, but it is a big piece of it. This is enormous news. Jeremy, I want you to stand by because we have seen those missiles that have been coming to Israel throughout the day. So stay with us. I do want to bring Jim Sciutto back in. Jim, this is very big news. And again, Jeremy, it is. And so help people understand, contextualize for them that what this means, that Iran's Supreme Leader has been killed in these strikes by the U.S. and Israel.
These strikes are now officially decapitated. We're willing to go. We're willing to go. Iran's most senior leader. Now, we had reported early target of these strikes that other senior military and other leaders in Iran were targeted. We don't know their status at this point, but as we reported earlier in the day, Israeli officials were becoming more confident over time today that they had hit at least some of their targets. Listen, in Iran, does that mean that suddenly there will be a new government, a new leader, one friendlier to the U.S.? No, an enormous network and structure of leadership and power remains in that country, military, economic, political, and otherwise. But to take out the Supreme Leader is a significant change. And of course, the question is, how far does that change go? Does it weaken the government to the degree that the government collapses? Does it weaken it to a degree that the protesters that we saw take on this government quite bravely in recent weeks are inspired to go out into the streets again, right? I mean, that's what President Trump was encouraging them to do explicitly in a statement this morning. Now, that's quite a risky proposition, given that government retains enormous power, and they showed they were willing to use it to deadly extent in the many thousands of protesters they killed in recent weeks. Those are still the open questions, but we have one question answered. Was Israel willing to go so far as to take out the Supreme Leader of Iran? And the answer is yes, and they had success doing so.
Right. And now the big question is what comes next? Jim Sciutto, stand by. I want to bring affairs and also first course waiting to hear here from the president, from the U.S. government, but the Israeli sources confirming that. What more are you learning? What did the president tell you?
So just about Khamenei, 40 minutes ago, the Israeli ambassador to Washington, Yechiel Leiter, updated several U.S. officials and members of Congress that Israeli intelligence shows that Khamenei has been killed and his body was taken out of the rubble. 2 or 3 days, and then tell the Iranians, 2 or 3 days, and then tell the Iranians, we'll see you again in a few years if you try and rebuild your nuclear program, your missile program, meaning that Donald Trump, at least my impression, from is ending with basically put an ultimatum to the Iranians. We can get a deal, or you can try and rebuild your program, and then we'll just bomb you again if you try to do this. And I think that was one of the messages that U.S. officials that just briefed reporters, I think 10 minutes ago, said that when the 12-day war ended after Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. told Iran, if you try to rebuild, we will come again. And those U.S. officials said that the Iranians, according to U.S. intelligence, did try and rebuild the program. So we know from satellite imagery that the Iranians started infrastructure work in several of the nuclear sites that were attacked in June. We do not know whether they really tried to resume a nuclear program, meaning enrichment and other activities. One of the interesting things I heard from President Trump is that he told me that he thinks that Operation Midnight Hammer allowed Operation Epic Fury to go forward. Because President Trump claimed that if he did not go on that operation last June, if he did not order a strike on those 3 nuclear facilities, Iran would have been much, much closer to a nuclear weapon, maybe even have a nuclear weapon by now, according to what President Trump said. And that would make the current operation much harder, maybe even impossible.
Prophetic burden. Have you got that? Then I'm praying also. There is another shot I saw. I saw big shots dying with the elephants. Big shots were dying with the elephants. I saw lions. Elephants. There was a buffalo. There is also this other animal which is called what is omusege? This other the wolf. The wolf was moving to eat the dead animals, but I stood in between and the wolf didn't eat. The Spirit told me, very many big people whom we hear in religions, whom we hear in our faith, whom we hear in government, this is their last year. I would mention 3 names, but for the glory of spiritual maturity and prophecy, I reserve the names. I talked to them in the spirit. They were not responding, but they were like lions, but a dead lion. In the Catholic faith, by the grace of God, I don't speak the names. Too many in the government were just dying like insects. Prophetic burden.
You're fighting for the money. You're fighting for our life.
He told foreign machineries they were fighting for money while he was fighting for his life.
Hey, Hey, quickly.
It turns out that was the most prophetic thing Willie Ngoma ever said, because 1 year later, a drone locked onto his coordinates and Willie was no more. So how did the M23 spokesman go from internet celebrity to the most hunted man in the DRC? It involves a laundry list of war crimes, a very expensive drone program, and a fatal miscalculation. In early February 2025, just as the M23 rebels were busy rewriting the map of eastern Congo by capturing Goma, Willie decided to step in front of a camera and staged the most gloriously theatrical expulsion of foreign machineries the Congo has ever seen. Colombia, Romania, and beyond, who had allegedly been hired to reinforce the Congolese army.
Don't joke to M23, my bro. Don't joke. That is army for the people. Don't joke. Don't joke. Move, quickly. Jump, quickly. Hey, quickly.
To M23 supporters, the footage was pure digital adrenaline because an African commander was publicly giving orders to foreign fighters, flipping a script many on the continent know too well, where outsiders have long dictated terms on African soil.
N'amenez pas les aventures ici. Tu as compris?
But the internet, of course, loved it. Supporters.
Quickly.
However, while he was busy curating his brand as a resistance icon, he had forgotten the first rule of the jungle. If you stick your head up, it gets blown off. The clip had humiliated the entire Congolese government, its president, its army, and most dangerously, its foreign backers, who had spent millions importing white machineries to do what the Congolese army couldn't.
What is your experience in Goma?
Our experience, we were just working there as instructors for the army. So,
Mercenaries?
No, instructors.
And that's the thing about wartime visibility. It doesn't just make you famous, it makes you findable. You see, Ngoma's enemies didn't need to invent reasons to want him gone. They already had a file. By the time that video made him a household face in the conflict, he had been sanctioned by the European Union since December 2022 and listed by the United Nations Security Council since at least 2024 under resolutions tied to undermining peace in the DRC. Now, the sanctions didn't accuse him of being merely an internet sensation. The charges were a laundry list of horrors: fueling instability, involvement in killings and abductions, and looting communities, recruiting child soldiers, sexual violence, and sustaining a parallel war economy financed through illegal mineral taxation and weapons network.
Helped by Rwanda.
No. Let's talk that.
In other words, he had swallowed far more than he could chew and the bill was piling up.
Notre pays. Donc, il traverse directement la frontière rwandaise. Donc, pour aller chez eux.
By February 2026, exactly 1 year after his internet stardom, President Felix Tshisekedi had stopped relying on sleepless nights and started relying on air superiority. The Congolese government had invested heavily in drone technology, looking to end the cat and mouse game in the dense forests of the east. One hotspot was Rubaya in Masisi territory, North Kivu, strategic not only because it sits on contested ground, but because it is rich in coltan and other minerals, the kind of resources that turn conflict into an economy. Willy Ngoma had reportedly been in and around that region for months, taking refuge in the area, likely thinking the rugged terrain would keep him safe. But you can't hide from the skies. On Tuesday, February 24th, 2026, the drones arrived. A Congolese army drone strike hit rebel position in Rubaya. Several M23 fighters were reportedly killed. Among them, according to regional security sources, was Willy Ngoma, the viral spokesman, the sanction-listed figure, the man whose voice had become a brand. The aftermath, predictably, was a tale of two cities. M23 supporters and critics of the government mourned him as a brave soldier, a martyr taken out in a violation of the ceasefire that only escalates the struggle. On the other side, government supporters saw it as a breakthrough. They described him as a key figure in a Rwanda-backed rebellion and framed the drone strike as proof that the state can still project force in the east.
Nous sommes aujourd'hui le 16 décembre 2024. Vous voyez les véhicules sont en train de brûler. Les FARDC eux-mêmes ont brûlé leurs véhicules. Bakimi, Botabana, Mutuka Batumi. Ça brûle encore, hein. Nous sommes là. Donc après Matembe, Tozisikoyo, Vichumbiro. Donc, Kabundi, c'est là Kabundi, Mbangu, Moko Sanate. Wazalendo, Mbangu, Mbangu Sanate. Hein? Moi, colonel, Nenga Ochiko, Basiko, Goza Oyoka. Mathieu Bapalangani, Nenga Bibo. Bapalangani, Botaba. Palamituka Yango. Ça toujours mouvement la bino dans la force. Toben la bino boya bo rejoindre biso que libérer Mboka. Merci beaucoup.
Civil society sources had reported heavy fighting in several localities near Rubaya since Sunday. Hundreds of families have been forced to flee. The Tuesday pre-dawn attack that killed M23 spokesperson Willy Ngoma targeted a spot that has in recent weeks served as an enclave for the M23 rebels, according to residents. Rubaya, a key coltan mining town in eastern DRC, produces approximately 15% of global supply and is also a key financial stronghold for the M23 rebels.
VM23 relies heavily on the Rubaya mine to keep itself financially afloat. Losing Rubaya and the decapitation of Willy Ngoma would be a hard blow to the rebellion.
The attack also comes at a time when Qatar-mediated ceasefire efforts are underway in Doha, where the DRC government and the M23 signed ceasefire agreements. Both parties have been trading accusations of violating the terms of the truce. Experts say Ngoma's killing might further strain ongoing peace efforts.
The other consequence may be the radicalization of the rebellion, as they have long decried Kinshasa's violation of the ceasefire. So the assassination or death of their leader could be a tipping point, meaning the M23 could abandon its current defensive stance and trigger a resumption of hostilities.